Hello, my name is Denise and welcome to my children's message. Let us begin with a greeting. I will say, peace be with you, and you respond, and also with you. Peace be with you. Thank you. Today's story is based on a reading from the book of Genesis, chapter 21, verses 8 to 21. And I want to read one verse to you, one verse to keep in your mind as I share my story. God was with the boy, and he grew up. He lived in the wilderness and became an expert with the bow. The desert. Oh, we know the desert. We know that the desert is a place nobody wants to go to unless they have to. We know that the desert during the day is so hot. And at night, the desert is so cold that people have to wear special clothing in the day and at night. And in the desert, there's hardly any water. There's hardly any food. So if you go into the desert, you need to bring your own. The desert is a dangerous place, and nobody wants to go here unless they have to. The wind can push the desert and change its shape and make it look different. So if you're looking for landmarks, you don't know where to go. The desert is a dangerous place, and nobody goes there unless they have to. Abraham and Sarah. Abraham and Sarah were talking to God one day. And God said to Abraham and Sarah, "You are going to have a son. And this son will be the father of so many children. There will be more children than there are stars in the heavens." Well, Sarah wasn't so sure about that. Sarah was older and she wasn't sure she could get pregnant. So she suggested that her husband Abraham have a baby with her servant Hagar. Hagar became pregnant, and she gave birth to a son named Ishmael. And shortly after Ishmael was born, Sarah had a son named Isaac. Isaac and Ishmael were brothers. And like brothers, they did things together, they teased each other, they were connected. But as they grew older, Sarah became worried. And Sarah spoke to Abraham and said, "I want Hagar and Ishmael to leave." One morning, Abraham came to Hagar and Ishmael and said, "You must leave. You cannot stay with me any longer." And Abraham gave Hagar a water skin filled with water and some bread. And he sent them on their way. Hagar and Ishmael walked together in the desert. And they shared their water and their bread together. And they kept going in the desert. And eventually, they ran out of water. They ran out of bread. And both of them were tired and weak. And Hagar took her son, and she laid him gently down underneath the bush. And she walked a ways away because she didn't want to watch her son die. And as Hagar sat crying out, and Ishmael whimpered under the bush, the angel of God heard them. And the angel of God said to Hagar, "Go to your son, pick him up and hold him." But first, the angel of God opened up Hagar's eyes, and she could see a well where she could get her water skin and fill it with water. So Hagar filled up her water skin and went to Ishmael, and Ishmael recovered. And in fact, Ishmael grew into a man, and God was with him. And Ishmael became an expert with the bow. And Ishmael too started a nation. Now I wonder what part of this story you think is the most important. Is it that Ishmael and Hagar stayed together even during their difficult journey through the desert? Is it that the angel of God came and spoke to them and made sure that they were safe, didn't forget about them, and helped Hagar find water? Is the most important part that Abraham told them to leave? Is the most important part that Ishmael and Isaac were brothers? Is the most important part that both Sarah and Hagar had sons? What do you think is the most important part in this story? Yes. Right. For me, the most important part is that even in the wilderness, even in the desert, even when God had spoken to Abraham and Sarah, God never left Ishmael and Hagar. God was with them. God heard them. This is a story about the people of God, and this is our story. Okay, so here we are in my kitchen. I wanted to take some time to show you how you could make cooked Play-Doh. If you're under the age of 12, I suggest you get a grown-up person to help you do this, because you're going to have to use the stove. So the first thing that goes into the pot is 1 cup or 250 milliliters of water. Then we put in 2 tablespoons or 30 milliliters of vegetable oil. Finally, food coloring. What's your favorite color? In case you haven't figured it out, mine's red. So put in, I'm going to say about 10 drops of food coloring. Then take a moment and stir it together. Now, we're going to add the dry ingredients. 250 milliliters of flour, or 1 cup. Half a cup, or 125 milliliters of salt. And finally, 2 teaspoons or 10 milligrams of cream of tartar. If you don't have cream of tartar, your Play-Doh won't last as long, but it will last for a while, and it may be a little bit more crumbly. Let's stir this together. Now I'm going to turn the stove on to medium-low heat and let it cook. So I've switched spoons and I'm now using a spatula so I can scrape the sides. And you can see that the Play-Doh is really forming into a ball. It's still cooking. Let it cook a little bit longer. And it gets tough to stir. It's nicely formed together. I think we'll say it's cooked. Take it out and put it on to a piece of parchment paper that you have ready beside the stove. Scrape out as best as you can. So if your Play-Doh is still sticky after being cooked, you may need to add a little bit of flour as you're kneading it. But as you can see, my Play-Doh is not sticking to my hands, and it's not sticking to the parchment paper. So, you've made yourself some Play-Doh. What are you going to do with your Play-Doh? Mine, I'm going to take some of my favorite rocks. I'm going to make a wilderness. I'm going to spread out the land. Maybe there's a mountain over here. Maybe I can pretend this is a little lake. Oh, and these little tiny rocks, maybe these could be people. And maybe over here, there's another jagged rock in the back. You can do lots of things with your Play-Doh. I hope you enjoy using it. Let's take a moment to come together and to say a prayer. Put your hands in whatever way you want to put them. I'm going to put mine up high. Dear God, thank you for being with Hagar and Ishmael during their time in the wilderness. And may we always remember that when we are scared or feel alone, You are right there with us. Amen. Peace to you and your families on this, the third Sunday after Pentecost.